Today, for the DJ Marketing School, we have a very special guest, Mr. Alan Berg. Some of you guys may know him. He is an industry leader. He helps businesses around the world improve their marketing and their sales strategies, and even wrote a book, Why Are They Ghosting Me?, which is a very powerful book for those of you that get ghosted a lot. He's got him right there behind him. We are very excited to have him here today. So, Mr. Allen, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, Tony. Thank you so much for having me on. And, we love talking marketing. We were doing it offline. I said, well, let's just get started because people need to be in on this conversation.
Yes, that is very true.
And when what you just said about, marketing, we were talking about this offline. Marketing is not the same for everybody, but it is the same. I've spoken in 14 countries on the business of weddings and events. And as we know, weddings and events are different in different places in the country, different places in the world, but the marketing of them isn't, right? The marketing of them is the same, which is get their attention, right? If nobody knows you exist, then that's it. Nothing else happens, right? We're done right there. And then they'll make an inquiry. And that could be a digital inquiry. It could be they call you. It could be for some people walking in, right? They have a storefront or an office, they could walk in. And then you have a conversation. That conversation might be digital. That conversation might be on the phone. That conversation might be Zoom. That might be in person. And then you get to make the sale. And sometimes that's an accelerated process. And sometimes it takes a long time. But the steps are the same. And when I started speaking internationally, I thought I have to change things. But what I have to just change is some maybe just lingo about their country or about the way that they do some things. But the first time, Tony, I spoke internationally was on the island of Barbados. And I stripped out all of the cultural references because I was like, they don't know these things that we know here. And I get to my hotel and I turn the TV on and it's the ABC station from New York City.
In Barbados?
In Barbados. So they totally know everything that we do. So I stopped stripping that out because, we live in a bubble here in the United States and people look at our bubble from outside. Now they have their own bubbles too, but we kind of all watch the same movies now, right? And a lot of these TV shows between, Netflix and Prime Video and all these other streaming channels are making it around the world. So the cultural references are kind of there. You have to be careful you don't get too niche on that. Yeah. But sales is sales. And when I remember speaking in Ireland and they're very, have you ever been to Ireland, Tony?
No, I have not.
I mean, super, super nice people, but they're not very aggressive, right? They don't like, no, we can't be aggressive. And the funny thing is, I was having this conversation.
I wouldn't take that from like a lot of the Irishmen I've met in America.
Exactly. But there's a different kind of aggression. That's a physical aggression, right?
Okay.
But if you listen, Irish people and Canadian people are always apologizing. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Right? If you listen, you'll hear that. It's always in there. And when I started speaking over there, people were like, oh, I don't think I could say that. And I'm thinking, that wasn't aggressive what I said. Like I live in New Jersey. I grew up in New York City. I know aggressive, right? Where are you, Tony?
I'm in Traverse City, Michigan. So northern Michigan.
Right, northern. Yeah, I get it. I know. I get the mitten. I know where you are up there. Yep. You're kind of at the ring finger or the pinky, but maybe over here. There you go.
Yeah.
So, over here where I live, aggressive is a different bar, right? It's a different bar. And when I go around, especially New Jersey, and I go around the world, and my bar is very low there. Like I said, no. I'm not going to teach you aggressive. I'm going to teach you confident. I'm going to teach you assertive. I'm going to teach you good business. I'm going to teach you good customer service, which is being proactive, which might to you seem aggressive, but really all you're doing is you're responding to an inquiry that came in. You're showing them that they're interested, and that's not aggressive. And I have to change their mindset that following up on a lead multiple times is not aggressive because they started it.
Yes.
Right? Have you ever done cold calling, Tony?
Yes, many times.
It's fun, right?
It's a lot of fun. If that's the word for it, yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, I know some people that love it, but most people don't love it. And the reason is you don't know if there's a need.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to find out if there's a need. So imagine cold calling for weddings where you just took phone numbers and just started dialing. Hi, anybody getting married? Hi, anybody getting married? Hi, right? Eventually you would find somebody that's getting married, right? Because 1 to 2% of the population is engaged at any given time. So 1 to 2% of the time, maybe you'd find somebody.
Maybe.
And I had somebody the other day say, well, I do cold calling. I said, really, what do you do? They said, well, I have bridal show list. I said, well, that's not exactly cold calling because the fact that they showed, but the fact that they showed up at the bridal show means at least there's a need, maybe not for a DJ, but there's a need, and they're getting married. So it's not the same kind of cold calling where I don't know if they're even getting married. You're one step closer. So is it lukewarm? Yeah, maybe lukewarm. It's not warm, but maybe if it's lukewarm. But that's not the same thing. And calling those people and emailing those people and direct mailing those people, to me, is not the same as cold calling. It's prospecting, but it's not cold calling. And you and I were talking about the difference between marketing and advertising, right? Marketing your business encompasses a whole lot of things, including advertising and all these other things. But that kind of cold calling, really for corporate work, I'm actually headed the end of this week to a venue in San Diego that I'm going to have to teach their people about cold calling for corporate events, right? And prospecting for corporate events. That's going to be different than weddings in some ways. But then once you have the interest, maybe not so much. What they don't know is that I secret shop them.
Right.
So
I remember when
I'm
I was working at the marketing agency for probably like the first 2.5, 3 years, most of my job was cold calling. They would literally just give me a list of companies that were making a certain amount of revenue. And that was the only criteria, nothing else. Not like they need marketing agency, not like, hey, their online presence is bad. Just the fact that they were hitting this number. And it helped me a lot because it did kind of show me how to, because if you can nurture a lead from a cold call to a client, it teaches you a lot. But that was also one of those things that I didn't really think meshed well with the wedding industry,
Yeah, but what it taught you is also asking good questions. How do you get somebody interested when they didn't start the conversation? That's what you could do at a bridal show, right? That's what you could do at a trade show. If you're going to other types of trade shows, somebody's walking by your booth. And what do you do to get their attention? And, hey, do you need a DJ? Yeah, that's it's an okay start. It's not a great start, right? So you're marketing
leading with a question. A good question could kind of turn the tide.
Right. Like I tell some of my DJs, somebody's walking by, first of all, your whole booth set up. That's a whole another marketing thing that we can do. No speakers, no lights, please just stop. That's not what you're selling. But if somebody comes by and say, how packed do you want your dance floor to be? And you want them to do what my good friend of mine, Brian Walter, calls the Scooby-Doo. You want them to go, what?
That's a good one.
Because you want them to want to know what's next. I did one of my podcasts, the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. I did one, they're short, right? They're like 6 to 12 minutes. And I did one on the elevator pitch. And, you ask somebody for your elevator pitch, some people don't have one. They don't know. Some people don't know what it is. It's that if you were in an elevator with someone going up to, let's say, the 10th floor, could you tell them what you do and get them interested to know more before the doors open, right? Or the 5th floor or something like that. And your elevator pitch is actually about 7 or 8 seconds. The follow-up could be maybe 10 or 20 seconds, and then you'll have a longer conversation. But the first thing is to get them to go, what? Right? Like, I want to know more. And I always use the example of a good friend of mine, Shep Hyken. He's one of the leading customer service experts in the world. And if you ask him what he does, he doesn't say, I'm one of the leading customer service experts in the world, because that's pretty pompous, right? It might be true, but it's pretty pompous. What he says is, so, hey, Tony, have you ever been to a hotel, a restaurant, or a business and just had an amazing customer experience? And you would say,
yes.
And he said, I help businesses do that.
That is a lot more powerful than just saying.
Right. And like, so how? Right.
Yeah.
How do you do that? And that's the follow-up, is now you have permission to say more on that, but you want them to think about it. And if they say no, you say, well, clearly none of those people have worked with me, because I help businesses create an amazing customer experience. Right. So either answer is good. It doesn't matter what the answer is.
Because it keeps the conversation going along. Right. So that way they can learn more about what it is that he does.
Which is the whole point. When you're talking, you don't learn anything. When you ask a question and then they talk, now you're learning something. And sometimes, I said this actually at the Marquee Show and some of the other places I've presented lately, if there's something you want them to know, ask them a question, which then gives you permission for the answer, because now they are asking you for the answer. Instead of just telling them, instead of like, blah, 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 let me tell you all about this, you get to ask a question. So for instance, DJs love to sell their ceremony sound, right? It's an upsell for some people. Some people it's in the package, either way. And what are we selling? Discrete wireless microphones. And,
I like your radio voice.
Thank you. Thank you
Good.
very much. Yeah. I'm a frustrated radio guy. What are podcasts? Podcasts are radios. Come on. That's what
Very true.
they are. So discrete wireless microphones is a means to an end, just like wireless LED uplights are a means to an end, just like a photo booth is a means to an end. But if you say to somebody, have you ever been to a wedding as a guest and you're at the ceremony and you couldn't hear what the couple was saying? Now there's two answers. There's yes or no. And if they say yes, well, it's too bad that they didn't have the right kind of ceremony sound that we're going to do for you, because we're going to make sure that everybody in the first row, the fourth row, the eighth row, and the 12th row can hear every word. And
it engages them a little more, right? Because if you are asking them a question and getting their answer, and then you can rebut it or answer that question, it's not just talk. I'm telling you everything I'm going to do, but you're engaging their mind to actually pay attention and engage in the dialogue.
But you're getting them to think about why, not just what, right? Discrete wireless microphones is a what, it's not a why. Have you ever been to a wedding ceremony where you couldn't hear what the couple was saying? Yes. You don't want that to happen to your guests, and we have the right sound system. Don't worry about it. We're going to make sure you're not going to see them in your pictures, but Aunt Sally in the 14th row is going to be hear every word. And if they say, no, I've never been to a ceremony where I couldn't hear the sound, you say, well, then clearly whoever was doing the sound did it right. And we're going to make sure that we do the same thing for yours. We have all the right equipment to make sure that happens, right? The negative, people pay money to eliminate negatives, right? The negative is people can't hear my vows. The positive is you're not going to see the microphones in your pictures. Okay, great. And the sound is going to be great. That's great. But the negative we want to eliminate is more powerful than the positive, because positive is like, oh, that's great, right? Negative, like that keyboard behind you. If I said, hey, it's a nice keyboard, maybe you should get it checked out, have somebody just go through it. And you're like, okay, I'll do that, to make sure it's working right. But if it's not working, right? If B flat isn't working, it goes to the shop, like immediately. Top priority goes to the shop. So you want to bring things up like that. Photo booths. I have one of my clients, a DJ, is selling 3 times more photo booths than he's ever sold. And he doesn't sell photo booths. He said, hey, have you guys thought about something fun for your guests when they're not on the dance floor? And once again, now they're picturing people who are not on the dance floor. Some people don't dance at all. Some people dance sometimes. Some people dance all night. But there are times when people are not on the dance floor. What are they doing?
Usually just sitting around,
whatever, but they could be. And then you could talk about the other benefits about how you're going to get all the pictures. And the 3 pictures everybody takes. Here's the, smiling at the camera picture. Here's the kiss picture. And here's the funky picture, right? Here we go. That's the 3 pictures everybody does in a photo booth, right?
Yeah.
Until they go back in. When they go back in, they do. But you get all of those, right? You're around talking to people at your wedding. You're going to see all those pictures. Now they want that because they want to get all the pictures, but they also want to have something fun for their guests when they're not on the dance floor.
So all of a sudden, it's not just a photo booth. It is a positive for the other people that aren't going to want to dance.
Right.
Okay, I like that. Let me ask you this. So with the consulting business that you do, you will usually work with wedding professionals, wedding vendors, or any business, right? It's not specific to weddings.
It's mostly wedding and events, yeah.
Okay, but you'll work with them on getting more leads and their sales processes and converting those leads more, correct?
It's any part of the process. So the 4 steps to getting more sales are getting their attention. So that's going to be advertising, marketing, networking, referrals, things like that, right? And then getting an inquiry. So I was reviewing a website yesterday, and he didn't have enough calls to action on the website. And the calls to action that he had were, check our availability. Well, that's a very specific thing. What if they don't want to check your availability yet? What if they want to find out some more information? What if they want to ask a question? And that was too specific. So I said, we need more calls to action that are a little bit more open so that, yes, if they want to check availability, good. But if they want to just ask a question, get a price quote, whatever it is, they can do that as well. So I help them with that. And then it's having a conversation. Like you mentioned in the beginning, thank you, with my books. Why Are They Ghosting Me is my latest book, which is the follow-up to Why Don't They Call Me, which is now in its second, I call it the refreshed edition, 2.0. It's not a full second, like completely redid the book. So we called it refreshed. And so the sequel to Why Don't They Call Me is Why Are They Ghosting Me? And this is probably the biggest area of profit potential for anybody listening here. Because if someone's already made an inquiry and you did not get a yes or a no, they might still need what you do. And if you don't follow up again and follow up again and follow up again until you get a yes or a no, they might choose somebody else. And from the secret shopping that I've done, and I've done secret shopping of many, many, many DJs and other people in in the US and around the world, we find that follow-up is one of the weakest parts.
And the gold is in the follow-up.
People will respond. They'll respond and quickly, and then they may not ever try again. They'll be like, well, if they're interested, they're interested. Or businesses make this assumption, well, they're just a price shopper. Well, how do you know? Well, the first question they asked was how much? I was like, what did you expect them to ask? Right?
They're new to this, especially in weddings.
Right. Well, like they're going to ask you for the frequency range on your speakers. Like, what do you think they're going to ask? Right. Yeah. I'm looking for a DJ that uses Serato. I mean, what do you think they're going to ask? Right. It's not going to happen. They're going to ask you the only thing that they know, which is how much is it going to cost for you to come and make my wedding amazing? But I don't know how to ask what I really need. I don't know to ask for the results that I want. People budget for a dollar amount, but not for the results that they want because they don't know what those results cost, right? Unlike you have a microphone, I have a microphone here, right? I had a different microphone. Here it is coming off the ceiling here. I have my other microphone. Now this microphone, this Blue Yeti is like one of the gold standards in the industry. The problem is that the pattern, the pickup pattern on it is a little too wide for my room, for this room that I'm in. And you would still get a little bit too much echo. So if I'm doing a Zoom call with family, with my wife, and it's the two of us in the room, that's a perfect microphone for it. If I'm just having a conversation or maybe I'm doing a consultation, that's fine. But for something like this, I'm going to use this Audio-Technica microphone because the dynamic pickup is straight in front. I have my pop filter and all, right? Again, I'm getting technical for people that are not DJ, anybody not listening, and I'm not a DJ. I don't play one on TV either, but I have the right equipment for the right things because I know the difference, right? I know. Now, when I was looking for this microphone, I knew what to look for because I knew the deficits of the other one, right? I knew that the pickup pattern and all that kind of stuff. Somebody shopping for a DJ, they've never shopped for a DJ before, or lighting or photo booth or whatever. They don't know what else to ask, so they ask how much. And by the way, when we're the customer, that's the exact same thing that we do.
Yep.
Right? When we don't know what to ask, we go, here's what I need, right? Like I had an air conditioning unit put in my bedroom, right? I need a heating air conditioning unit put in my bedroom. How much is that? Right? Now, once the first person comes and gives me the lessons that I need, the schooling that I need, to the second person I say, listen, my bedroom has this many cubic feet. I think I need 15,000 BTUs. Now I can ask some of those questions.
Now you're more educated to ask those questions.
Right, which is why when you're the second DJ that they've spoken to or the third DJ, they start asking you some of those other questions that they don't know what to ask at the first time. But when someone reaches out to you, you just picture this, right? So if you think about the area that you're in, Tony, just the geographic area where you live, how many good DJs are there within 50 miles?
Good DJs?
Good, and not great.
Probably about 20 or 30?
Right. And the answer is probably 50 that could do a good job. Again, not to the level that you might do, but could do a good job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. The results that you're going to provide are going to be good. The results somebody else can provide could be good, but they're going to be different. And what you have to be selling is that they want your results, not somebody's results. Because if they want somebody's results, somebody charges less than you do. And matter of fact, everybody listening here, when you were new in business, it was you that was the one that was charging less. Because you were like the DJ that I spoke to the other day. He said, you probably heard this story 1,000 times. I was in college and somebody was getting married and I was the only DJ they knew. And they said, hey, could you come DJ the wedding? And that's how we got started in the business. I said, I have heard that story from photographers and I've heard that story from videographers. It's the same story over and over. Oh, cake, you love baking cakes. Hey, we're getting married. Could you bake us a cake, right? That qualifies you as a technical person, but not as a business person. A business person needs to know the other skills. I did a mastermind day in the UK with 10 DJs. And at the end of the day, we're walking out and this one DJ, Bernie, he says to me, so Alan, how long have you been a DJ? I said, I've never been a DJ. He said, I don't understand. I said, Bernie, I don't know how else to say those words. I've never been a DJ.
But he couldn't believe it because you were helping him with the business.
So what he said to me was, but you understand my business better than I do. I said, I do. I can't be a DJ, but I understand your business better than you do. And that's the difference between the technical skill and the business skill. The technical skill of mixing and spinning and announcements and all the things that you do and grand entrances and love stories and all that. I don't know that, right? I don't know that. But I do know your business. And I know your business better than you do because I've been under the hood of more DJ businesses than you'll ever be under because I've done this with DJs all over the world. So you've seen you and maybe a couple of your friends where I've seen hundreds, if not more. And I know what the challenges are and I know how to fix them and I can help you with stuff like that. But business is business. Somebody reaches out to you. They've eliminated most of your competitors. So you're up in the UP and there's some pretty good people up in the UP, right up in your area. So you have Thomas Heath is up that way. You get over to Escanaba and you have Mitch Taylor, right? You have some really, really good people up that way. And then you have some people that are okay. And then you have some people that are just starting out and they're charging $400 or $500 and, they're thinking, hey, this is cool on a weekend. Hey, I make a few dollars, right? And, how does a Mitch Taylor get the price that he does when there's somebody that charges a fraction of what he charges? And the answer is he's only trying to fill his calendar. He's not trying to do every wedding that's up there. And that's the key, is we have to try to fill our calendars. I had a conversation, actually was the guy that was supposed to come to Midwest Live, and I had donated to the charity that Midwest has. I donated some of my time.
Yeah, the DJs helping DJs.
Yeah, and I did a consult. I donated 3 hours of my time. It's $400 an hour. I'd say, here, I want to give. And we were having a conversation, and I said, so what's your inventory? Like how many events do you want to do in a year? He goes, well, I don't know. I said, well, there's a problem because we need to know what number you're trying to hit, and we need to know how many events you're trying to do, and then divide that out and say, does this work? I had a client of mine, was a floral company. And he said, listen, we're doing about 300,000 and we want to get to 1 million. I said, okay, what's our average sale? Tell me the average sale. I said, right, well, based upon that, you need to do about 140 events a year. And it was husband and wife. And the wife is like, no, we can't. Right?
Too many.
It's way too many. I said, well, what's the number? And she said like 80, 85. I said, well, then math doesn't work. You can't get to $1 million with that average sale doing 85 events. So you either have to back off on your number of events and say, let's work on profitability, or you have to scale up and say, I need a bigger facility and a bigger truck and a bigger refrigerator and more staff and more advertising, more marketing, right? I need all those things. The math just didn't work. And this is the problem with a lot of people in our industry, is they're going forward with it, but they're not looking and saying, okay, I want to do X dollars a year, right? I want to gross X dollars a year. I'm just going to pick a number. I want to gross $100,000. Okay, fine. And what's your average sale? My average sale is $2,000. I said, okay, so you need to get 50 people to spend $2,000. That's what it is. And like, how many are you doing now? Well, I'm doing 25. Okay, well, you need to double. Well, we know that according to the Knot and Wedding Wire, the most popular wedding days of the year, there are 22 of them roughly between May and October. Right, so let's call it 25, because if you look at an actual calendar, there's about 25 Saturdays between May and October. And yes, I know if you're listening in Arizona, July and August are dead, but you're also doing Marches and Februarys that we're not doing here in New Jersey and up in Michigan, right?
Very true.
You're right. Those February weddings, they're not beating down the doors, right? Maybe Valentine's Day, maybe, but not even so much.
Not up here, at least.
Not up there, right. And Mackinac Island, nobody really wants to go in January.
No.
If you can even get over, I don't even know if you can get over there, right?
I don't even think you can't. Yeah. And I don't think there's a way to move around the island during.
Yeah, I think they're shut down. Yeah, so there you go. But again, in every market, and I've seen this around the world, there's anywhere from 20 to 30 really, really popular days. And those are the days where you should be charging the most because the supply and demand's in your favor. But on a Tuesday in an off season, nobody's beating down your doors. You can offer something lower. A friend of mine in the UK said he was trying to do 25 weddings a year, and he had 4 different offerings for how much of the day that he would do, because some people over there only do like after dinner, they're going to do dancing. They'll have the DJ come in or whatever. I said, if you're only going to do 25 weddings a year, you should have one price. And just you come for as much as they want you to come, for as little as they want you to come. But every time you take one of those after dinner ones, you've given up an inventory to someone that might hire you to do the whole day.
Yep.
And if you think about it, you've seen the Mary Poppins movies, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you know how she had that bag, and no matter what you wanted was in the bag. Like there's a kayak in the bag.
Pull it out.
Just pull it out. I want you to be like Mary Poppins, where you're going to show up with the whole bag and you're going to do any or all of what's in the bag or none of it. But you're going to make the wedding amazing based upon what their needs are. And if something that's in the bag is not needed, fine, but the price didn't change. Because what makes it amazing is not what's in the bag, it's the person holding the bag.
Very
and if you're
true.
selling what's in the bag, somebody sells it cheaper. And if you're selling the person holding the bag, providing those results that only that person can provide, they have to hire you because nobody else can do what you do. I'm not saying nobody else can do a good job. I'm saying nobody else is going to do your results. So I said this at the Marquee Show. Imagine if we were in a sci-fi movie and there's a couple that's getting married, but there's 3 of the exact same couple, like clones. And they're getting married on the same day, these 3 clones, at the same venue, and everything is the same except the DJ. Are the results going to be the same?
Heck no.
But they might be 5-star results on all 3 of them, but they're going to be different.
Very different.
And if I go to websites of DJs and other wedding professionals, I see them selling the stuff that everybody else has. I actually put this up on the screen. I went to a DJ's website and I took one of their packages and I put it up on the screen. And it was, 5 hours of DJ and ceremony sound and yada, 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 bullet point. I said, how many people in this room can do that? And the answer is everybody. Absolutely everybody. Matter of fact, I could probably do that.
Yep.
But sell the results that only you can provide. And then nobody else can do that. And that's the problem, is too many people are selling the same thing that everybody else is selling, and there's no distinguishing factor, right? Even if I look at your websites, you copied the website of a DJ that you admire. Great. So now you look like them. Now you're branding yourself as somebody else.
And not yourself.
It's totally disingenuous, right? Know what other people are doing, but then chart your own path. Don't be different just to be different. Be different because you are different. But, not just to be different. I've seen people do that where they word their menus in a certain way, or they do certain things like, okay, now I don't even know where to go when I'm on your website.
Yeah.
And now you've made it hard. Shep Hyken, who I mentioned before, he has a book called The Convenience Revolution, and he talks about creating friction. Right? Don't create friction that makes it hard to do business with you. Make it easy to do business with you, because people, just like the air conditioning guy that we hired, he was the most responsive, right? He made it easy to do business with him. Other people made it hard because I would have to then go reaching out to them and then wait for a response. Yeah.
Well, and what I like about what you were saying, especially knowing what the amount of inventory that a specific business wants to do, is that if they pay attention to their closing rate or their booking rate, right? By knowing how many dates they want to fill, and knowing what their closing rate or their booking rate is, that can also give them the number of how many leads they need to generate any given month. And all of a sudden, it's not a guessing game, right? It's not, oh, I hope I get these dates full. It's, I need to bring in more leads. Let me figure out how to do that, whether that is Facebook ads or step up some
Instagram
SEO.
ads or the Not Wedding Wire, whatever. But the other thing there is, if you know your conversion rate, you might not need any more leads. You just might need better conversion. And this is the thing that I've seen with a lot of my clients and a lot of people that I speak to at conferences. You don't need more leads. You just need to work the leads you have better, because you don't have to pay a dime to get that lead. You already got it. But if you don't have a yes or a no, work that lead again, work it again. Richie, my podcast producer, Richie Stedman, is also a DJ in Utah. And he wrote me one day that he has to listen to every episode because he's my producer, but he went back and listened to an episode that I did about follow-up. And he said, you know what? Let me go back to some of these people. He went back to everybody for the last few months, not days, not weeks, months, and booked 5 weddings. Now, was it worth his time? Yes. Did it cost them another dime in advertising? Zero. Absolutely nothing. He emailed people out just to, make it, just not just saying, I'm just checking in, but he emailed them again. And people said, oh, yeah, we've been meaning to get a hold of you. Oh, we were buying a house. Oh, we were busy with this. Oh, somebody was sick or whatever. Thanks. And almost everybody is thanking him for following up again. Thank you for reaching out again. The customer is saying to the business, thank you for reaching out again. That's the key.
Well,
So-
that was one of the most valuable things that I learned from doing that 2 years of cold calling businesses, because when you are kind of forced into that position of cold calling, literally all of it is in the follow-up. They never say yes that first time. So you're constantly having to follow up. So that has always just kind of been baked into a lot of what I have done is
Right.
unless I get a no,
Mhm.
I'm going to continue following up. Even if, even if I got the lead like 2 or 3 months ago.
Doesn't matter.
And it's always been valuable.
Right. Is the need still there, right? If the wedding or event is happening much later, the need might still be there. They might not have picked somebody for whatever reason. You don't know. That's the point of, if I don't have a yes or a no, you don't know. You don't know what the answer is. I'll take a no. I can take a no because I can move on, right? I have somebody right now that's ghosting me, right? I wrote the book. Somebody that's ghosting me. And I'm following up and I'm giving them the out. I'm writing to them and saying, listen, have you made a decision? Have you gone with somebody else? I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with not knowing, because I don't want you to come out of the woodwork and then say, hey, are you still good for October, whatever? I'm like, no, I'm not.
I'm not.
Because you didn't get back to me. So no, I'm not. And that's the whole point, is I want to be able to move on knowing that that is closed. I have closed that file. There we go. One of the things that a lot of people do, it's a self-inflicted wound, and I talk about this in Why Are They Ghosting Me and Why Don't They Call Me, is when you do have a conversation with someone, you leave it off in a very ambiguous way that you don't know what's going to happen next and when, and they don't know what's going to happen next and when. And I have these little signs that I give people: ambiguous next steps bring ambiguous results.
Bingo.
Because they say, okay, well, we want to think about it. Great. When? With whom? Right? What's the process? What's the criteria they're going to use to make that final decision? All right. Do they need to run it by anybody else? Who else are the decision makers in? I mean, these are all things that you should know as part of your conversation. And if it's just like, hey, we want to think about it, and you're like, okay, cool, I'll follow up. Well, they don't know when, they don't know how, they're not expecting a call, an email, or whatever. It's too ambiguous. So you want to try to make it that you know what's going to happen next. They know what's going to happen next. I have another one that I'm dealing with now where unfortunately, it's 3 people involved in this one. So I'm trying to get them on the phone now, because we've had an in-person conversation at a conference. We've had a bunch of email back and forths, and it's just too many questions. And I said, hey, we can speed this up. Let's just get on the call. Well, the one person said to the third person, hey, what's good for you? And they haven't gotten back. And this, by the way, is a problem, because you should never say to somebody, what's good for you? You should give them a choice and then make them make a decision. So let's get on the phone. Is the morning or the afternoon better? Right. Let's talk tomorrow. Is morning or afternoon better? Or is 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock better? Or is during the week or on the weekend better for you for a meeting? Right. Choice of 2. And by the way, this works for any decision. So if we were going to go to lunch, or if I was up in Traverse City, we're going to go to lunch. If you're like, hey, what do you feel like having? A hamburger or a pizza? I'm like, I kind of feel like sushi. Okay, great. Let's go here. And we're there instead of, I don't know, Tony, what do you feel like? I don't know, Alan, what do you feel like? No, you decide. No, you decide. Right?
How many times have we been in that?
Oh my God, we've had that conversation, right? You've had that with your significant other. You've had that with children. You've had that with employees and other people in the industry. It's just human nature. We think we're being helpful, and we're actually making it harder to make a decision because we've left too many choices open.
So with that, we need time to think about it. Is a good response something like, is it okay if I follow up in a week?
That's a yes or no question. No. So if they say we need time to think about it, you say, absolutely, this is a really big decision. When are you looking to make the final decision on your DJ? Okay. Or absolutely, this is a really big decision, which, by the way, you've already tried to close the sale 3 times, but this absolutely, you should think about it. This is a really big decision. You guys are going to come up with some questions that you didn't think to ask me today. Right. And today is, what is today? Wednesday. So why don't we do this? Let's schedule some time for Friday. And you can ask me the questions that you forgot. As soon as you hang up, you're going to be like, oh, why didn't I ask Tony that question? Well, did on Friday. If you're ready to book, great. If you're not ready to book, that's fine. But this way you can ask me those questions. So same time on Friday?
That's gold.
There's another one
right
there.
That is gold. Mic drop.
There you go. Never drop the mic. But that idea of taking control of the situation and acknowledging what's the truth, which is they are going to think of questions that they didn't think to ask before, right? Mm-hmm. Or you might say to them, if they say, hey, we want to think about it, you say, absolutely. What other DJs are you going to be talking to besides me? Okay.
Yeah.
Or what other appointments do you have scheduled with DJs? Right? That's another one as well. So you're asking that question. If they go, and if they say, oh, we don't have any other appointments scheduled, ding, 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 ding. That's good. Some people do just want to think about it.
Yeah.
Not everybody makes a decision the way that you or I do, right? I make decisions a certain way. You make decisions a certain way. Not everybody does that. Some people make decisions very quickly. Some people need to think and analyze and, do that. So when you run into someone who's not like you, there's friction between you and them, because if you're a quick decision maker, you're like, why aren't they deciding, right? And if you're somebody that doesn't make a decision quickly, you're not asking for the sale because you don't think they should be making a decision right now, because you wouldn't do that. And I've run into that so many times where somebody who said, well, I actually had this with a venue who said she tells people to go home and think about it. And I wanted to, if I wasn't on a chair already, I would have fallen down. I was like, what do you mean you tell them to go think about it? And she said, well, it's a really big decision. I said, well, it is, but what if they want to book your venue? And she said, well, yeah, but it's a big decision. I said, you mean to tell me nobody's ever booked you on the first appointment? Like a couple came in towards your venue and booked you. And she said, well, there was one couple, I told them to go home and think about it. They got in their car, they get halfway down the driveway, they stopped. They turned around, they came back and they said, we don't want to think about it. We want to book. I said, right. How many people did you send out the driveway who never came back that would have booked had you just asked?
Yep.
And that's the thing. That's the other sign that I do. If you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Ask for the sale.
Right. Because it's your job to ask for the sale. It's not their job to tell you that they want to do it. It's your job to ask for the sale. But how you ask for the sale is the difference between aggressive and assertive and confident and, these different things. So if you say, wow, I am so excited about your wedding. I have so many ideas bouncing around in my head. I want to get started planning. Should we get started now? I just asked for the sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they start asking about things like, the timeline and songs and stuff like that. You're like, you know what? We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, because the most important thing to know right now is that I'm available for your wedding. You want me to do your wedding. And then all those other details we're going to work out. So should we go ahead and get your date reserved so we can get onto the other stuff?
Yes.
Again, just asking for the sale there, right? So asking for the sale, you could also turn that around. There's a great book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He was a former chief hostage negotiator for the FBI, wrote a business book. And he said there's three kinds of yes. There's a counterfeit yes, where they tell you yes and they don't really mean it. There's the third was the commitment yes. So confident yes, counterfeit yes. There was the confirmation yes, and then there was the commitment yes. You want the commitment yes, which is yes. But he said if you sometimes get them to say no as a yes. So Tony, is there any reason we shouldn't go ahead and move forward with your wedding now?
No.
There you go. That's a yes. That is a commitment yes, right? Because the confirmation yes, he said you need to get 3 yeses. They said yes, but you really need them to say yes 3 times. So it's really a commitment. But that no is that. So sometimes you'll have an appointment. You call somebody up and you say, is now still a good time? And they say yes. But you say, is this a bad time for you? Oh, no, this is fine. That's a stronger yes, right? So sometimes getting them to say no is actually a yes.
I just want to ask you this. What is the most common mistake in that process that you see when you first bring on a new client? We already kind of talked about the follow-up,
Mm-hmm.
Other than the follow-up, is there any kind of common denominator that you see a lot of these businesses failing at that could be an easy fix if they just knew about it?
Yeah. And it's why I wrote Why Are They Ghosting Me? Because that was one of the biggest things that people are telling me is I'm getting leads and I'm getting ghosted, which then they're assuming that they're fake leads or bad leads or stuff like that, which no. Do we get fake leads? Occasionally, not nearly as much as people think they are. Mm-hmm. Are we getting price shoppers? Yes, not nearly as much as people think we are, because if you make price the most important thing, they will, right? But if you get the conversation changing, they will. So the biggest mistake I see people making is they try to rush the process, meaning you get a digital inquiry through Instagram, through Facebook, through Wedding Wire, through whatever, your website, whatever it is. And you immediately try to change that to a phone call or a Zoom call or an in-person meeting. And that adds friction to the process. And you have people that are not ready for that. And then they'll ghost you because they're like, back off, buddy. I don't want to do that yet.
Especially millennials and Gen Z.
Right. That's the biggest mistake I see people making. if the phone rings, which it would, which is why my other book is called Why Don't They Call Me? Because they don't. And I actually used to joke when I wrote the first edition of that I should have just written a book that was really, really short. The cover says, Why Don't They Call Me? And you open it up and it says, Get Over It. So now, Tony, in the refreshed edition of Why Don't They Call Me, when you open the cover, it says, Get Over It. So there you go.
So the rest of the book in there.
The rest of the book is still there, though.
So it was a nice medium.
Right. It works. It works. But I had a guy that called me about a week and a half ago, and I answered the phone. And I forget what time of the day or whatever. And first of all, he was surprised that I answered my own phone. But truth is, it doesn't ring that much, right? And these days, right? These days when it rings, it's because my auto warranty is up or something like that, right? It's one of those things.
Yeah. Darn
and I always answer the phone the same way. Alan Berg. That's it. I don't have to say thank you for calling Alan Berg. Thank you for calling Wedding Business Solutions. This is Alan Berg. How can I help you? No, you're looking for me. You're calling my business, looking for me. Alan Berg. And he's like, oh, Alan, hi, this is, and he told me his name. And now I'm going to speak at his conference next month. Right. And he said, wow, you actually answered the phone. I said, and I always joke with people. I say, it's funny because that's what I do when it rings,
Right.
That's what I do. But this guy, who is probably a Gen Xer, I'm going to guess he's a Gen Xer. He might be an older Gen Xer, but he's a Gen Xer, right? He said, I need to talk to Alan. He picked up the phone and called me. So I'm meeting him where he was. He came to me on the phone. I'm meeting him there. If they come to you on Instagram message, meet them there. I hate Instagram Messenger, but I will meet you there, right? Facebook Messenger I'm better with because just the app is better on my phone and stuff like that. But I will meet you there. Not a problem. I got booked to speak in Cartagena, Colombia through Facebook Messenger. All in Spanish, and booked, paid in full, all through there. And the funniest part of that is a woman from Uruguay was planning this conference in Cartagena. And at the end of it, I didn't ask her how many times she wanted me to speak because it was a one-day event. And I didn't ask her if she wanted me to speak in English or Spanish. Again, it was a one-day event. So at the end of the conversation, where I've been paid now, she said, do you take PayPal? I said, yes. And this is all happening in Spanish. And I wrote to her, I said, by the way, how many presentations do you want me to do? Because I charge for the day, not for the presentation. How many do you want me to do? And do you want me to speak in English or Spanish? And she writes back, you can present in Spanish? I said, well, didn't you see me I spoke in Uruguay the year before. Didn't you see me in Montevideo? She said, no, I saw you in Las Vegas. So, I didn't ask her because it wasn't important. I didn't ask her how many presentations you wanted me to do. She didn't say to me, how many can you do? I didn't ask that. I got booked and paid. Then I asked that question. It would be like you saying, what's your first dance song? Right. And I need to know that before we're booked. No, you don't. Right. How many uplights? You shouldn't be charging by the uplight. You should be charging by providing the right amount of lights to make that thing happen, whatever that is. And if that's 4 or 8 or 12 or 20, you should be charging for the results of that. Right. Photo booth. I had a guy come up to me at the Photo Booth Expo a couple of years ago, and he's looking at a mirror booth. And he said there were 2 booths, and one was 3,000 and one was 10,000. He said, I don't know which one to buy. I said, well, I can't tell you which one to buy, but I can tell you this. Whichever one you buy, charge the same to the customer for the use of it. And he said, why? This one costs 3 times what that one does. I said, right. But the results to the customer, they're not going to know that. So charge for the results. It's going to be the same. Now, if you buy the 10,000 because it'll last longer, it's more durable, it's lighter, whatever it is, that's up to you, right? That's like somebody buying a BMW versus a Hyundai. That's up to you. You're still going to get there, right? But
so for the most part, just meeting the clients or the inquiries or the leads where they are, wherever they are communicating from, reflecting that and kind of.
Well, part of that is giving them as many choices as possible to make it easy for them to choose the one that's right for them. So my website, you can call me, text me, email me, fill out a contact form on the page that you're on, or fill out the actual contact page. So you have all of those choices. If you're not giving people the choices that they want, it adds friction. They might still reach out, they might not. But when they reach out digitally and you immediately say, call me, let's have a phone call, let's have a Zoom call or an in-person meeting, that creates friction for a lot of people. And your biggest opportunity cost is the people that have reached out that then ghost you because you don't have a yes or a no. So you don't know if they need somebody. And just like Richie reaches out to a whole bunch of people for the last months, not just recently, like months back, and books 5 people, right? And I do this to people. I reach out again and again. I practice what I preach. I use different subject lines in the emails. Sometimes I want them to just laugh or smile, like, should I stay or should I go now? Things like that, because I want them to be curious. I had this one campaign I did direct mail campaign with email follow-ups. And the 4th email to them, this is for sales training. The 4th email subject line was, how persistent is your sales team? Right. And I want them to go, oh, not this persistent. Right. And then another one that I did was, don't you wish your sales team followed up as much as I do?
There you go.
Right. But that's the point, is I'm going to do business with some of those people, and some of those people will still ghost me. But if any one of those people reaches back out and I do business with them, it was worth it. It was worth it. And that's the problem, is some people, and I get it. You're busy with other stuff. There's ways you can actually cut down the number of leads that you're getting, putting better pricing information on your website, even if it's just a range, can cut down the number. If you cut down the number of leads you're getting and follow up better, your conversion rate is going to be that much higher. A guy called me the other day and he starts telling me about his KPIs, his key performance indicators, which a lot of people in our industry are like, with KPI.
What's that?
Is like BPM? Is that like something like that, right? But
is it like a CDJ?
Yeah. And he knows his inquiry to conversation to sale ratio. And he said, what I need you for is to help us from the inquiries that we're getting to get more of those people to have conversations. Because if I can get them on the phone, I can close X percentage of those people. He knows those numbers. So he doesn't need more leads. He's getting the leads, and he wants to increase the conversion from lead to phone conversation. How do I get more of those there? And again, I know I said that's one of the reasons you're getting ghosted. You can do that without asking for the call right away. You can get them on the phone if you don't ask right away. And that's what I'm going to teach him and teach his people, is how to do that to get that number up. Because when that number goes up, they're on the phone. He knows what his conversion rate is for on the phone, and he knows how much more money he can make, and he knows that it's going to be way more than he's going to pay me.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, other than some of the things that we had covered today, I know you've probably got some stuff going, so I won't keep you much longer. Is there anything else that you want to kind of throw in there, just as maybe something we didn't have a chance to cover, something you just wanted to be known?
Well, real simple. You have to make it about the results. So if you go look at your website and you read your website out loud, are you talking to the person reading it about the results that you can provide? Or are you talking to the SEO, to the search engines, and you're trying to get people to your website? Because if your website doesn't speak to the people who are coming, who are your potential customers, about the results you can provide them, and only you can provide them, then what's going to happen is the search engine can bring people there, and then they're going to leave because they don't feel like you're talking to them. So write for the people that are coming to your site first, then for the search engines. And SEO doesn't even matter if you're not trying to get business from search engines. If you're getting business from the Knot, Wedding Wire, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, search engines
doesn't matter
to do with that. It doesn't matter. That's why one of my podcasts was, I don't care about SEO, should you? And then yet I had Matt Campbell on talking about SEO because some people do care. I don't care because I'm not looking for someone who's looking for someone that looks something like what I do. I'm looking for someone looking for me. So by my podcast and my 6 books and my speaking and my consulting and going to conferences and stuff, that's how people find out about me. And then they reach out to me because they want me and only me to do what it is that I'm going to do, as opposed to I need somebody. Because if you just need somebody, there's a whole lot of people cheaper than me. A whole lot of people.
And you've talked about that before on your podcast, the way that your website is even set up to have a high bounce rate, because as soon as they get on the website, they have exactly what they need, which traditionally hurts SEO.
Right.
But you've literally set up your website to where as soon as they go to where they want to go, they're there. And then they...
Well, and it actually doesn't hurt SEO. It hurts the bounce rate. And the bounce rate is something I don't care about. Right? I actually did another podcast about the only 3 things I care about on my website: the amount of traffic that's mobile, which I'm watching the trending over time. I care about which pages people are looking at. And I care about maybe how they got there. Right. But that's all I care about, because the rest of it I really can't act on. So my
Yeah.
bounce rate, I have a high bounce rate, but I look at my calendar and my profit and loss statement. And if my calendar is full and my profit and loss statement looks good, who cares what the bounce rate is?
You're good.
Who cares?
That's what you need.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's the thing, is focus on the things that you can do. I did another podcast. My wife actually was like, you actually called it that? I wasn't thinking, I knew what I meant when I wrote this title. The title of the podcast was Just Because You Can Measure It Doesn't Mean You Should.
I listened to that one. I didn't catch that though.
Yeah, so you didn't catch it either because you're a marketing guy. So you knew what I meant. But it was good because it actually turned into a good thing because people on social are having fun with it, which is also good because then they're interacting with me on social. But the point is that there's a lot of things that you can measure in your business, but you can't necessarily act on them. So why are you paying attention? And it came from a conversation where somebody asked me how many phone calls I used to have my sales reps at the Knot make when I was VP of sales. And I said, I never measured that because you get what you measure. So if I measured phone calls, I got phone calls. I measured sales, so I got sales. And in my own business, that's what I measure. I measure profitability. Like I know my percentage, my profit percentage, right? If I look at my P&L statement, I know that my expenses are higher now than they were during COVID because I'm traveling again. But I compared my expenses to 2019 and 2018, and they're in line. So I'm not worried about the fact that the number went up because I'm grossing more than I did last year, but I'm netting less because I'm flying more and I'm in hotels more and rental cars more and meals and things have gone up. So I'm not worried about it. But if I just looking at, oh my gosh, I'm grossing more, I'm netting less. Well, what's wrong? Hair on fire. Well, I don't know. But hair, I'm not going to worry about that because I understand those numbers. I understand. Let me go back and compare it to a real comparison. 2018, 2019. Yeah, I'm in line. I was spending on travel back then. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Understanding your numbers. But inventory, I think, is the biggest thing that people need to look at is if you can do those 25 or 30 weddings a year, if doing weddings, those busiest Saturdays, if you could profit well on those, every other event you decide to do and choose to do is much more profitable because your overhead's covered. Right?
But
if you have to do 50 weddings a year to make good money, there's a pricing problem. Right? There's a pricing problem. There's a profit problem, which may or may not be a pricing problem, but there's a profit problem.
Yeah, it could just be you're not charging enough.
Well, that's a given. That's a given. Everybody listening can raise your rates, and people are telling me that they can't. I can prove it to you. Raise your rate by $1.
There you go.
Right? Nobody's going to say no. Right? Nobody who is saying yes is going to say no. So then the question is not can you raise your rates, it's how many dollars can you raise your rate? Is it 1? Is it 5? Is it 50? Is it 100? Is it 500? Is it 1,000? Is it what is the number? And there are people out there proving that if you provide the results, again, Mitch Taylor up in your area, if you provide the results, you can charge that number and people who see the value will pay it and people who don't see the value won't. And that's okay. I don't want everybody to say yes because I can't do them all. And in 2019, way too many people said yes. My rate was the highest it had been at that point. It's higher now. And I was away 178 nights from home. And I don't want to do that again. So I raised my rate again.
That's true.
To control my inventory, I raised my rate again. So I'm getting more no's, or hopefully getting more no's because I have control of that. I don't have to say yes. Right? I don't have to say yes. And I get to choose which ones I want to do based upon they're willing to see the value, willing to pay the number. And I know you asked me for one thing and we're on the 5th one already. So there we go.
No, that's okay. And honestly, it hurts me a little bit inside to have to stop it.
Well, we can do this again. We can do this again. We can do this again.
Yes, I would honestly love to. And normally I would try to recap everything, but there were so many nuggets in there. So what I might end up doing is kind of splitting it up into a couple different parts.
Sure.
But thank you so much, Alan. That has been Mr. Alan Berg, owner of Wedding Business Solutions. So if you are watching this and you have not checked out his podcast and not checked out his book, you definitely should. Chances are, if you were watching this, you probably already listened to his podcast, so good on you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you found it helpful. If you're watching this on YouTube, consider subscribing to our channel or click the link in the description below to join our Facebook community. If you're watching this on Facebook, consider tagging a DJ friend. Tag somebody who you think might find this information helpful.